Hello and welcome back to the Webheads Comic Club podcast. This is, of course, our podcast where we are reading every single issue of The Amazing Spider-Man and discussing it here for you beautiful people. My name is DA. I am joined by my co-host,
JP.
And we are here after a long hiatus. You guys already know it was entirely my fault that we were gone for, 3 months now?
Yeah, it's been a while.
This is a weekly podcast that hasn't posted an episode in 3 months. Reason why is the health issues I've been having the whole year. You've heard it in the episodes. You know, this is old news. Don't need to bring it up again. But I've pretty much gotten to the point now where I was like, basically, we either start the podcast again now or we're just not going to do it for like half a year. And we both really missed doing it, so we decided to bring it back.
We can make it a once every year podcast.
Yeah, once annual. It'll only take us, a few hundred years to finish the whole
centuries.
Yeah, the whole run. I did the math the other day and I already forgot, but I think it was like if we did weekly episodes, it would take 3.5 years to get to issue 900.
I feel like that's not that bad.
It's not that bad, but that is a lot when you think of it that way.
I'm gonna tell you, once we get to the later issues, it's not gonna be 5 issues. We're gonna be doing storyline by storyline. I feel like
yeah.
So I think it might be actually shorter. If we would
could be shorter, could be longer. It depends.
Could be longer as well.
Because some storylines are 6 issues, some storylines are 4 issues. Once we get into the tie-ins with the other series,
that's.
We got a whole lot of time ahead of us, so
that's gonna be a mess.
Jump along for the ride, guys. If you're not already subscribed, if you're not already following on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, what are you doing? Right.
I mean, honestly, get yourself together.
But how's before we dive into the books this week? How's life been the last few months? The internet hasn't really heard from you since the last episode of Webheads.
Right, I've been sitting in this chair waiting for you to call me.
Okay.
So
you must
finally call me. I've switched. What I've been doing is switching up my room again every 2 days. So we're in a new background, a new place, same room again, as you can see with the blue walls. Everything's switched around. I'm sure next week it will be in a totally different spot as well. So stay tuned for that. That's a ongoing.
See, I have a theory that I think that when we started this podcast, you actually bought a green screen, and each different background is actually just like
I kind of look like I'm that guy.
Green screened in. Like I think you're faking it. You do. If you moved that couch, you could do like a blue screen. I mean, that's possible.
I could. Yeah, I kind of looks like I'm.
It does. That's what I'm saying. Like I'm a little suspicious, to be honest with you, but.
What do you think I am?
I don't know, but I'm just like you're like, oh, I'm gonna change up my scenery like every episode because you've had a different background. I think almost every
next week I'm underwater. I'm in a fish tank.
Yeah, one of these days you should just show up with a green screen and be like in space, or like in JJ's office, like a panel.
I'm in the room you're in.
You're just So come to visit me, and then we'll film an episode where you're actually just sitting behind me, but we don't acknowledge it the entire time.
That'd be great. That'd be actually amazing.
Yeah, we'll do that. But now we've said it on air, so I don't think that we can really surprise people.
They'll forget.
Yeah.
We'll do it on issue 753, and then.
Or like. We'll record an episode where you're there and I'm here, and the entire time we're talking, but at some point during the episode, you just like walk through the background of my shot, like while you're talking there. We'll do it. But we can go ahead and dive into the books this week. This is a slight change. I think last episode I said we were doing 30 through 34. This episode we're actually doing 30 through 33. That seemed like a better way to break it up. So we have a big storyline in these 3 issues. With kind of a random 30 thrown in there. But we can just dive right into this thing. So do you want to do which issue do you want to do a summary of, 30 and 32, or do you want 31 and 33? If we're all
summary, let's see. I'll do 32 and 33 probably, because like I said, I read 30 back when we were supposed to do the podcast, and I just flipped through it today, so my summary would probably be
okay, so I'll do 30
less than stellar.
And 31. All right. So Amazing Spider-Man 30. I read this a few days ago. I read it earlier this week when we decided we were going to record this today. So this might not be the best summary, but basically the story follows Spider-Man trying to make some money, and the cat burglar, or as he later becomes known, the Cat, breaking into some buildings. He breaks into J. Jonah Jameson's home, steals some of his stocks and bonds, which I thought was a little outdated of a thing to happen. But so Spider-Man ends up fighting his henchmen. He goes and basically gloats to JJ, saying that he's going to catch the cat burglar and get the reward money because he wants money. And so he goes searching for the cat burglar throughout the episode. And this also features kind of the end of Betty, Brant, and Peter. It seems like they're pretty much over, which I was glad to see. But ultimately, he catches the cat burglar. Or rather, the police catch the cat burglar, so he does not get the reward money, and JJ gets his victory that he so rightly deserves.
Of course.
But that's pretty much the quick summary. Thoughts?
Well, first and foremost, water tower cover. Finally, after 30 issues, the water towers are a main character. In the first 29 issues, finally we get them on the cover. So
first cover appearance of the water tower.
Exactly right. Yeah. So get them now because they're gonna go up. They're gonna go up.
Yeah. I mean, knowing Sony, they'll probably make
a water tower movie. I think there was there might have actually been a water tower in the new Spider-Man movie. I was like,
I did hear that before they greenlit El Muerto, they actually were considering Water Tower the movie.
The water towers have been in countless more comics than he has. So.
It was a short list. It was Water Tower the movie, Big Wheel, and El Muerto, and they decided to go with El Muerto. So
Morbius too, is somewhere in there.
Yeah, of course. It's Morbius.
I'm actually really scared that everybody making fun of it so much is gonna get them a second movie.
I have seen that on Twitter. People are memeing it so much that I saw someone they were like, guys, we have to stop. They're gonna think we like this movie. I'm like,
I still haven't seen it. I'm gonna see it at some point, but
I'm not.
It's so funny.
I'm not giving them my money. But one thing. Continue. You were. I think you were in the middle of a thought.
Right. Actual thoughts in the book. From my notes here, what I wrote months ago. It was a very realistic story in terms of very grounded. There wasn't really anything super crazy in terms of villains or anything. It was pretty much a cat burglar, and he was pretty much good at what he did. So it was very grounded, very
very street level.
Very street level.
Which I mean, Spider-Man definitely has some grandiose villains and things where he's saving the world, but it is nice to see him just catching a burglar.
Yeah, it's his day to day. What does his day to day look like?
Yeah, exactly. That's what it did. Kind of feel like a filler issue. They were just kind of bridging the gap between 28
now,
and 30.
I'm just looking here. So are these the same henchmen from the next couple issues?
Yes, and I was gonna point that out. I noticed because I saw them in this issue. They have the purple outfits,
right?
And then in the next few issues, they end up being henchmen for the Master Planner, whoever that is.
That is a crazy name.
And I noticed that as well, which is weird because it doesn't seem like there's a connection between them. These henchmen seemingly work for the cat burglar. And then they work for the Master Planner. So I don't know if Steve Ditko just got lazy with his art and was like, they're goons. They wear the same outfit or whatever. But
that, or it's unsaid that the Master Planner took him under his wing.
Maybe after the cat got busted.
Say that.
So that's a little interesting continuity between. One thing that I wanted to point out, which I don't know if you noticed this, on page 5, the bottom panels. Spider-Man's mask has the creepiest smile on it I have ever seen in a comic book.
Holy.
It's when JJ is imagining Spider-Man gloating about making a bunch of money, and Steve Ditko drew pupils into the eyes of his mask, and he put a big smile on his face. And that is nightmare. If I remember, I'll put a picture up on the video on YouTube. It's horrifying.
That's gotta be a multiverse Spider-Man, right?
Oh no! I'm surprised that didn't show up in Spider-Verse or something.
Yeah. But that is, I don't know how I didn't notice that. Maybe I did. Again, it was long ago.
I was just reading and I saw it
incredible.
And I got scared. I mean, it's actually terrifying.
That is insane. I could tell you.
And the next big takeaway,
Imagine if he looked like that.
What?
Imagine if he looked like that, just generally.
That's what I'm saying. It's horrifying. I'm like, geez, that's what JJ sees Spider-Man as? That's terrible. No wonder he hates him.
Also, I think it's around these same pages that JJ threatens to off himself, which is interesting.
Oh, I did, yeah. He says, I'll have to kill myself. And I was like, well, you can't say that anymore.
Yeah, he's going to get canceled or something.
That's a little...
Not even that.
Well, I mean, it's a little less bad. It's worse if you're telling someone to, it's a little less bad if you're saying I'm going to. He still like generally shouldn't joke about it, but like maybe he's serious, you know?
I mean, it was the '60s. Come on.
They've done worse. Let's put it that way.
They did. Definitely
Speaking of doing worse, it was actually immediately after that Flash is completely stalking Liz Allen.
Right. Again,
completely stalking her.
Yeah. There was some interesting things with relationships in this whole story arc. I guess that you can kind of says starts with issue 30 if the henchmen are the same. But yeah, straight up stalking.
Yeah, no, like Flash is like, hey, or Liz is like, hey, Peter, Flash is following me. Can you distract him so I can get away? And it's, no one sees that as a red flag. They're just like, Flash, he's so determined.
It was the 60s, man. Come on.
It be like that, man.
It's just how it was.
Yeah, 100%. Totally normal behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And then Peter and Flash basically just fight. Peter knocks him the heck out. But I thought that was interesting. He's straight up stalking Liz.
I like how it actually knocked him out with it. I think he said it was like a slight tap. I tapped him just gently enough to keep him quiet for a few minutes.
Yep.
Also, I don't know, was it in this issue that Boswell is revealed? Or was it a different issue?
To be Patch?
To be Patch, yeah.
That was that was last episode.
That was in the Goblin issues?
Yeah.
Or
it was. Not like no characters know it, but the reader knows it.
Right. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so because Foswell in this issue, again, it's a long time ago, is he getting word of all this stuff going around the cat burglar because of Patch?
Yeah. So we see in this whole episode, all the issues we read this week, like a lot of Foswell using his identity as Patch to get information and working with Spider-Man and getting stories and stuff like that. So I imagine that's going to come to some kind of a climax. I honestly have no idea what happens, so I'm actually excited as a reader because this is a bit of Spider-Man history that I didn't know. So that'll be interesting to see. But
I wonder where he is in the current comics.
Maybe he dies.
Maybe he dies.
We don't know. Haven't got there yet.
See it happening. They've killed off some criminals so far, so.
Yeah.
But the burglar gets to be revealed as Cletus Cassidy. No, I'm kidding. But this guy is a straight up redhead. I mean, that's orange. That's orange ink.
Where? What page?
For me, it's 870, but I feel like it's probably less for you.
Not quite. Well, the art has page number. Oh, I see it. Yeah, he does.
Oh, yeah, 13. The art does have page number 13.
Yeah, he definitely has the red hair. It's actually, it looks more like Cletus Cassidy in the movie.
It does, yeah.
When they cast a old actor to play a young character, but it's fine.
Yeah, they messed that
up. I'm not bitter. It's okay. The biggest takeaway, I think, and I have a couple really good panels of art that I want to point out, but aside from that, I think the main takeaway of this issue was Betty and Peter seemingly being the end of them. Like the very last panel is them walking away and there's like a spectral Spider-Man going like this between them, which first of all, that's awesome art. Love that panel. Awesome panel. But it seemed like when I read this, because we've been talking about like when is Peter and Betty gonna stop being a thing, because we know that it doesn't really last. And when I read this issue, I was like, okay, this is the end. Yep. And then it kind of isn't, but it is.
How old are they supposed to be? Well, in college, right? So what are they, like
18?
18-ish? Yeah. I mean, they're horrible at this whole thing. I mean, I get it. Peter's pretty much saying, Betty's saying, listen, I know Peter has a secret, and he won't tell me, and it's, come between us. And Peter's like, obviously the secret is that he's Spider-Man, but Betty hates Spider-Man, so he can't tell her he's Spider-Man. So instead, he's just like, I'm going to try to make her hate me, generally. Mm-hmm. So that it's better for her.
That's a bad idea.
And everybody else. Yeah, I mean, you could probably done a better job at it.
Right. And I mean, I think that shows that Peter is not very good with the ladies, which we've known this. What I will say is, and we see more of this in the future issues, but these really start to give, in my opinion, an actually decent reason for why Peter and Betty don't work out. Because before, they just weren't working out because of like miscommunication and just really bad timing. But now it's like, okay, Betty doesn't want a person who is seeking danger or seeking the thrill or anything like that, and he is Spider-Man, and so they could never work. And so it actually sells it to me that like they wouldn't work out.
Yeah, I mean, it's just even the later issues we're gonna get into, he just goes about it in such a bad way.
He
And
goes about it in the worst way.
yeah.
But I think the reasoning makes a little more sense now.
And it's the first time this is classic Spider-Man where he loves somebody and he is gonna pretty much distance himself from them because he knows if he gets close to them, it's gonna burn him. Which we meet somebody in the next issue, which
that is something that I've
started that.
talked about quite a bit lately with Peter Parker and Mary Jane. I have a whole video on my channel talking about it. And I think that there's a difference there where when Stan Lee writes Peter Parker, he distances himself from his loved ones because he doesn't want them to get in danger.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the thing that a lot of modern writers get wrong is they have the loved ones distance themselves from Peter because of how he's treated. Like, do you see what I mean with the difference there? Like, they're like, oh, all his friends are mad at him. And I'm like, no. They all want to be in his life. He's the one who's distancing himself. And I think they do that wrong nowadays.
Because he feels like he has a responsibility going back to the...
He's too good of a person to just be a dick to all his friends and people he loves. So
even though he's had his moments, it's usually under a lot of stress.
Yeah, it's under stress or noble or anything like that. But all in all, issue 30, how would you rank this out of 10?
5.
Yeah, I was gonna say like 5, 6. It wasn't bad. It was a filler issue, you know.
Yeah, it was a cool cover.
Yeah,
nice cover.
It's an okay cover. You have this issue. I do not have this one.
I got this right before we were gonna do this, and I got it for I think a bid of $20. It's in horrible condition. It's barely attached. It's only attached by one staple. Horrible condition. Damn near fell apart when I read it. But for $20, issue 30, well, why not?
That's not bad. I would buy that.
Why not? Yeah, why not?
I do not. So I have none of the issues this week, which is a real shame on me as an Amazing Spider-Man collector because we have some big ones this week.
Yeah, we do. Especially if you now try to get a 33 just because of the cover. It's insane.
Yeah, it's nuts. So
yeah,
one day. And 31 is obviously a key issue, which we're gonna dive into now. Amazing Spider-Man 31, the first of a 3-part storyline, which will be the remainder of this episode this week. If This Be My Destiny.
So I have this one.
I do not.
Because of its important first appearances.
Yeah, so this is the first appearance of Gwen Stacy and Harry Osborn.
Yes, and is it his first college issue as well?
His first college issue, yeah. He starts college and meets Harry Osborn and meets Gwen Stacy, who artistically, Gwen Stacy looks a lot different than the look they kind of end up on for her, which I thought was interesting.
I don't know what to say the wrong thing here. Help me out here. She's drawn more. I don't know. I wouldn't even say less. She's not even drawn nerdy in the later issues, but
she's drawn more like Mary Jane and less like
That's what I was trying to.
Carly Cooper. Like she's more like, ooh, look how beautiful she is, and
flashy, I guess, right?
Yeah. Like, and she's supposed to be like a model or whatever. But obviously, you know, when you think of Spider-Man's girlfriends, what makes Gwen Stacy stand out is obviously her intelligence. So
right. But you could be smart and pretty.
No, you can, but I'm saying that's something that
they
focus on that later.
I'm a living example.
They're alluding to that in these issues, but you don't really see it yet. Also, I heard that, ignored it. We're moving past it. The comments can disagree or agree with you. You know, we'll see. At JP Creations, if you wanna on most socials.
Well, if it be my destiny.
Are you gonna have thirst traps on TikTok?
One day, obviously.
Okay, so follow him on TikTok at It's JP Creations.
It's only inevitable. I mean, time is ticking.
Yeah. I mean, OnlyFans probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. Makes sense. Anyway.
Pub driver. All
right. So
let's get into issue 31.
Yeah. We already basically summarized it. First day of college. Meets Harry. Meets Gwen. The big thing that's really going on in this specific issue and establishing the 3-issue storyline is that Aunt May has been getting sick, and we've known this. Another example of Stan Lee starting to kind of weave his stories together. And in this issue, Peter finally finds out about it. She passes out and goes to the hospital, and they're trying to figure out what's wrong with her. And so he's really stressed out about that. And because he's so stressed out about that, he makes a horrible first impression with all of his classmates. And they all think he's a stuck-up jerk. And it starts to introduce the master planner and his henchmen, and who is he? We don't know.
Either of us actually didn't know. We both
I
didn't
did not
know.
know. Yeah,
No.
I did guess though.
And what was that?
I guessed correctly.
You guessed correctly. I don't even think I guessed when I was reading them.
I was like,
what did I think? I thought it was gonna be something like not the big man, but in that category of stuff, like.
So, I
Kinda
think
crime boss.
it was started to lead up in this issue, right? And oops, sorry. They're teasing like the master planner, but they won't reveal who it is. He's in this underwater base, and I think he says at some point like, "I've fought Spider-Man before," so you know it's some returning character. And when I read that, I was like, "Wait, is Dr. Octopus in these issues? Like, I didn't know he was in these issues, and he totally is.
Spoiler alert!
It's him."
I think we talked about one of the podcasts because I was looking at the covers of everything. He's not on the cover till like
50s,
55, 54, 55,
53, I think.
Oh, 53.
Something like that.
And I think I said to you like he's not gonna be there until 53. So when it was revealed that it was Zagaka, I was like, well, we got fooled. We judged the books by its cover. 100%. So now we don't know when is it gonna be. This is his last couple issues he's gonna be in until 53 or 50 whatever.
I would guess
probably.
Yeah. Just because I know what like based on
right.
What
Yeah.
But so I had no clue what this 3-issue 31 through 33 was about. I knew that it had something to do with Aunt May being sick, and obviously I know the iconic moment in 33, but I had no clue who the villain was or kind of what was going on. So reading this was actually really, really exciting for me. It was new.
Was fun. It was a really cool opening too. I really liked how it just got right into the action with the heist with the helicopter, and then the helicopter putting down what it was stealing down into the water, and it has like an underwater base and everything. It was pretty cool. The scuba divers, pretty sick.
Yeah,
it was a cool opening.
Yeah, no, it definitely got right into and immediately I recognized like their outfits from the last issue, so I was like, wait, these guys are like still around? What are they doing? So it caught your attention and like intrigue into the story.
It was kind of funny. Remember last time we saw Doc Ock, he was in a octopus tank with a rebreather on, and now he's got an underwater base with the
they're trying to lean into the octopus motif, and I'm glad they eventually give up on that.
That's got to be why they put him in the water, right?
Yeah, 100%,
I mean, it's smart
100%.
generally, but is that why they did it? Is because of the whole octopus thing?
100%. And I'm glad
they didn't mention that though. They didn't mention it like that though.
No,
wasn't
they
like
did.
I'm underwater.
It wasn't as obvious as I will defeat you in my namesake's manner and diving.
I thought he was gonna do something like my secret base, just as it should be, as all octopus dens are.
Yeah,
deep in the sand.
Not quite that stupid, but yeah. Dr. Octopus definitely gets smarter as time goes on. Let's put it that way.
Yeah,
I'm very excited for the future of his character in this series.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun to follow,
especially when he starts to get sick and all of that. Good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But in this issue is basically was it this issue or last issue when we found out that Ned Leeds proposed to Betty Brant?
I don't think that was even last issue. That may have been an issue before that, right?
I'm pretty sure it was one of these issues because I remember reading it.
All right, then it was definitely last issue then.
Okay, yeah. So Ned Leeds proposed to Betty Brant, which we've talked about the cultural differences between the 60s and now and how it's a little weird reading it.
It's the 60s, man.
Seemingly just liking a girl and then being like, all right, so marry me. That's definitely a very 60s thing.
We can go have a Coke and
we can go have a Coke after school and marry me. That's literally.
Which sounds like such a fun thing to do after school. Like, you want to go have a soda? Like, yeah.
I do.
That'd be fun.
Yeah. I feel like it's probably because he couldn't write like a drink. Well, maybe back in the 60s they went and got soda, but
I'll have to ask some older people.
Yeah.
I'll get back to you. That'll be my homework.
Yeah. No, that's the viewers' homework. Ask your grandparents, did they used to get soda after school? And if so, let us know in the comments or on Twitter or Instagram or whatever. But
grandparents, man, my dad was born in the 60s.
Yeah, born in the 60s, but they weren't like old in the 60s. Like my parents were born in the 60s, but no, yeah, like we've talked about that in one of the past episodes about how like dating in the 60s seemingly is not like an exclusive thing. Like Betty and Peter were kind of dating, but then she would also kind of date Ned. And it seems like they just kind of have that like courting phase and then it's like, okay, marriage.
You think it's because that would drive me crazy nowadays.
What?
You feel me?
culture has shifted so much, but I think the concept, and we're gonna go on like a slight tangent here.
You think it's because they don't have phones and stuff, so it's just like they don't know what anybody else is doing generally?
Maybe, but I also
Let me
feel
think about that.
I feel like socially, just the concept of like exclusive but not married is a relatively new concept in like the last 50 years.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I feel like before that it was like, I like you, we're gonna go on 3 dates, and then if I decide I still like you, I'm gonna propose. Like, I feel like that's how people used to do it. Whereas nowadays it's like, you will date someone for years, oftentimes live with them, oftentimes do also, like, I've lived with Reagan for 3 years before I proposed. That was not a thing in the 60s.
Yeah, no.
And I think it really shows here when Ned Leeds is proposing to Betty Brant, and instead of being like, whoa, pump the brakes, she's like, but what about Peter? Like, if Peter wasn't in the picture, I'd say yes immediately. Like,
do you think it's really? Is it just a comic book, or was it, there's no way it was actually like that back then? Even back then, I can't wrap my brain around that.
Dude, I'm pretty sure if you look up like Stan Lee telling the story of how he met his wife, I'm pretty sure he like met her, took her on a couple dates, and then they got married. Like, it was a very,
maybe he's just different, I guess.
I don't know. Ask your grandparents. Did they drink soda after work, and did they get married after 3 days?
I always hear like grandparents and stuff say like, I saw her and immediately knew I was going to marry this woman, but never it was like, and then the next day I asked her. Like,
people be doing it, man. People be doing it.
People be doing it nowadays too, and it never like usually ends up well nowadays. But people that get married back then are like, yeah, I've been married for 60 years. Like,
different culture, man. I don't know. But that's what I'm getting reading this. Oh, I think Reagan just got home. So that was kind of. Yeah, speaking of which, speak and she shall appear. But that was pretty much the gist of this issue. Kind of, he fought with the henchmen and was starting to like learn of the master planner, but he didn't really follow up on it much. He was mostly worried about Aunt May and focused on that.
Yeah, and so Harry doesn't like Peter to start out, even though they become friends.
Yeah.
And then obviously my brain. So here we go. Obviously my brain is in the future. Yours is stuck in. I'm stuck 1966 or whatever it is now.
Yeah.
Watching in the same panel for the first time Peter, Gwen, and Harry, knowing what I know personally is like, this is just run, get away. This is the start of it all, and it's kind of sad almost.
I don't know what you're talking about. I mean, Harry seems like a jerk, and Gwen seems like a real bombshell.
Even though Gwen has come back in different ways, and she's going to again soon,
don't even get on that.
She has really actually stayed deceased more than any comic character, really.
Yeah, because her death is so iconic, it's like you can't do that. Undo it. You cannot, like, her death is just as momentous to Spider-Man's character as Uncle Ben's.
Fully, yeah.
And so, like, you can bring, like, they've brought Uncle Ben back for, like, an emotional scene or whatever, and I imagine that's what they're going to be doing with Gwen Stacy in a couple months, but it's like, you cannot bring her back permanently because that would just be such a detriment to his character and his history.
Totally. But so it is, in that way, I think, a little sad, because it's like, she will die because of all this, of the person she's meeting today and her friend.
I didn't think of it like that, man.
Father. She's talking to is going to do it.
She wasn't so insistent on...
yeah.
Which I did think was a little funny, her thought. She's like, I just can't help but be attracted to him. I'm like, is Peter Parker that attractive? Let's be real here.
It's because he's giving her the cold shoulder. That's not 60s. That's just straight up.
She's attracted to his brains. She's like, he got the science scholarship?
He's just ignoring her, so she's like, all right.
But I'm just does that to me. Maybe I'm enforcing some, like, stereotypes here, but, like, a woman that beautiful just seeing, like, the nerd wallflower walk in the room and be a complete jerk to everybody, and she's just like, I can't help myself. It's like, does he have spider pheromones? Like, what is going on here?
This wasn't in the actual issue that I read, because I read the actual issue, but I don't know if this is a printing mistake. But Harry's green, so that's foreshadowing.
No, that's on my page too.
Really? I didn't notice that in.
I don't know if it's just like an art choice or what.
I don't think I saw it in the actual.
They did on the next page. They do it for some other people as well. So I think it's.
Just, oh, my bad. I think
it's just.
Pretty sure it's
choice.
Fully foreshadowing. 100%.
His teeth are yellow though.
Okay.
Even more Green Goblin-y. But yeah, I
yeah,
mean,
no, that I was sad to see. It was sad because like
yeah,
this is just the beginning of the end. I mean, it's gonna be multiple years before that happens,
it's the
right?
beginning of the beginning before the end.
For the end,
We have
yes.
a ways to go, and I'm excited because I have read almost none of the comics from this point until her death,
Right.
other
Me
than
too.
spare like a few. So I have very, very limited reading of Peter and Gwen Stacy's actual relationship.
Yep.
Like I know about it from knowing the history and things like that. And I know the major moments, but I'm actually really excited to experience it and read it and see kind of their progression. And I will feel exactly the same once we get to Mary Jane. It's going to be super awesome to see that form and develop. That's one of the reasons I'm really excited about this series. But all in all, this issue, I would rate it. I'm going to give it a 7. I would do higher because it's the first appearance of Gwen Stacy and all this other stuff, but like just purely from a reading perspective, story-wise, I thought it was good. It wasn't mind-blowing. It wasn't, 9 or a 10, but I think a solid 7 I'd give it. Maybe 7.5.
Right. I would. I'd say 7. Solid 7. Or even 6.5. I mean, it was good, but we've seen better.
It's good. It sets up. The only reason I'm rating it as high as I am is because it sets up the following issues really well.
It does, yeah.
And those issues are really good, and we'll dive into those. But that's why I think it's a really good beginning to this 3-part arc, and I think this is Stan Lee's best multi-part story so far, in my opinion.
100%. And it was really good, man. I mean, we'll talk about it after I guess I do the little thing, but this is how you do a story arc. You don't even tell that a story arc is happening. You just let the reader kind of realize that each issue has been leading up to something, or you're in the middle of something, instead of, nowadays this would have been Man on a Rampage part 1 of 3, you know what I mean? And there would have been a one-shot called Man on a Rampage.
Yeah, Man on Rampage,
Spider-Man. Alpha, black and white, blue, red.
Yeah. That's where I think Marvel has gone away from that formula of like just keep the story contained within its own series. Like tie-ins are good, like crossovers are good, but it should be a crossover story completely contained in that series.
Yeah.
Because my problem is when I'm reading Spider-Man and now I got to read like a King in Black tie-in. It's like if I'm not picking up King in Black, it just completely interrupts the story I'm reading.
Right.
And one of the things that's really cool about ongoing comic books that go back 50 years is like it's one continuous story. And I think this is when they really started to do that, because like the first 20 issues, 30 issues we were reading was like mostly one-offs, right?
Yeah.
Then they started to have like 2-parters, and there were some like connecting narratives, and then now we're getting to the point where it's like fully connected multi-part stories that follow, like Aunt May's sickness, which we're diving into issue 32 at this point. Aunt May's sickness is because of the blood infusion that she got from Peter Parker back in like issue 20 something. That's really cool.
I mean, yeah, I wonder if Stan back when he was writing that original issue, when the I can't speak, transfusion thing happened. I wonder if he was like, I'm going to use this later, or if he just kind of thought about that, thought back to it.
I'm pretty sure they even said in that issue, Peter was like, "Oh, what could this do? Like, this could do something bad." And then since then, we've been, building up that Aunt May hasn't been feeling well.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm kind of annoyed I didn't see it. Like, I didn't even think of that as the reason why. I just thought she was
another
old.
thing. I don't know if this is like the third or only the second time that Aunt May's gotten sick. I feel like she's definitely gotten sick
quite a bit
prior. But this, you could have said, "Oh, she's getting sick again. Okay, she's gonna feel better in a couple of days." This was an actual. He needed to do something, otherwise, she was probably gonna just die, right, or go into a coma.
Yeah.
For who knows how long. So it was a bit different, and there were a lot more stakes to it, which was nice. So it was a nice change, even though you're gonna do something like, okay, Aunt May's sick again. It was a nice change of pace, and it was, again, I'm gonna say it, classic Spider-Man story.
We get to see desperate Spider-Man. First of all, I gotta just say this cover. Like, people talk about the cover for 33. I gotta say the cover for 22 is awesome.
I think it's better. Well, okay.
I would agree. 33 is more iconic.
It's a more iconic, right? This one's sick. Just him, like,
I love this.
For whatever reason, before I read this, I always thought it was outside. I don't know why.
Yeah.
But now that I read it, he's inside. So pretty much what happens, right? Okay, so we learn that Aunt May's sick because of the transfusion with Peter's blood.
Mm-hmm.
He goes to Dr. Connors, who is no longer the Lizard, which I think was really cool. I really like how they brought him in, not as a Lizard. He's now in New York, convenience. And he goes to Doc Connors and says, "Listen, I need you to help me with a friend that has radioactivity or radiation in their blood, right? Is that what's going on here?"
Yeah.
And there's a new radioactive chemical that can help them. So he gets shipped there, but obviously Doc Ock, who is the master planner, wants all this radioactive gear so he can rule the world. And he sees this shipment coming into New York, so he goes to do a heist on it. Brings up the heistmen.
Coincidence.
Yeah, great coincidence. And Spider-Man literally, you talk about Rampage is the right word. He goes off the wall, man. He is ripping everything apart. He is going to every hideout looking for Doc Ock. He doesn't know it's Doc Ock at this point, the master planner.
Yeah.
To see where he is and to get this vial of I don't know what they called it, but this chemical back to Dr. Connors so he can make an antidote for Aunt May.
Yeah. And then the issue ends with him getting stuck under rubble.
Right, and stuck in the rubble. Can't get out. He's trapped. What happened to Doc Ock in this? So he gets to the end of the base. And Spider-Man's ripping everything apart. Things start falling on him. He's trapped under a bunch of machinery. But Doc Ock's in the room, pretty much locked in the room with him, and his henchmen are at like another side of the door or just another part of the base. I don't know what happened to Doc Ock.
As no one does. And that's one thing I really liked is they kind of leave it as like a did Doc Ock die as well? Because the last time we see him is him going like, "You fool, it'll kill us both," and all the rubble falls. So, as a reader back in the 60s, I'm thinking, oh, is Doc Ock dead? Or did he live? And then I imagine down the line when he reappears again, we'll probably get some explanation for how he survived.
Can we take bets on what they show us, how he survived?
I feel like he's going to swim out of the base, octopus style.
He's going to there's going to be a hole. Oh, just by luck. And then he's going to swim out.
Yeah, something like that. But no, I loved this issue. Seeing Peter fantastic. Go just like gloves off, like desperation. Honestly, what I was thinking the entire time I was reading this storyline was like, this would be an awesome Spider-Man movie. Like, I would love to see this Spider-Man movie. Obviously, it's not going to happen in the MCU because Aunt May is not around anymore, so we can't really do that. I do feel like we kind of got this after Aunt May died in No Way Home. Like, you got to see Peter really go, like, rough on Green Goblin. And this was kind of similar. Like, he was just not playing around. And it was almost like the beginning of a villain arc. Like, he was like, why shouldn't I just beat the living crap out of you, crooks? And if Aunt May had died, I feel like his character might have gone in a really different direction.
Even when he goes to it was Foswell. It was still Foswell. He goes to Foswell and says, "I know you still have ties in the underworld. Get me information on where the master planner is and what he needs." And he goes, I could be a really great friend or a really great enemy. And then he leaves. Like, that's he's slipping, man.
That's some tough. And what we were talking about with the cover. This man rips a staircase out of the ground. You want to talk about feats of strength? I know we're getting to next issue. He ripped a staircase out of the ground with like 3 guys on it. Like, that is tough, dude. And that's why it's on the cover and it's a dope panel. Like, they're trying to escape and he just goes, no, and just rips up a freaking staircase. That is cool.
As he's doing it, he's like, I'm tired of playing with kitty gloves with you punks. He's ripping a staircase out of the ground.
And literally one of the gangsters is like, he ripped out the whole blamed staircase. Like, I would throw my gun down too after that. Like, are you kidding me?
It just shows you how much that he's actually holding back, 98% of the time.
Yeah, like he really can do some crazy things. But then he goes to the Doc Ock's hideout in the ocean. And fights with him, which I was very pleased to see that because I love Doc Ock and I did not expect him to be in these issues at all. So seeing another fight scene with him was pretty cool.
And I don't think he's wearing a similar. I always like to look at costumes.
He's wearing the green tights now.
He's wearing it's green tights now. It's not like green, sweatsuit.
And the goggles. You gotta have the goggles.
Yeah, you gotta have the goggles. I am excited to see why he gets that yellow and orange I don't know why. He gets a yellow and orange suit.
Oh,
Somewhere down the line.
yeah.
It's like a classic Doc Ock, I think.
He changes
At this
it
point.
up. You know, he's stylish.
I like it. I like how he changes it up. I like that.
But what I will say about the ending of this issue is this was definitely, like, of all of the cliffhangers that they've done in this book, like when Spider-Man was about to get unmasked with Green Goblin and the Crime Master and, like, all the stuff like that, this one was genuinely, like, raised the stakes to a point where I was like, holy crap, I know this is going to go well, but I'm excited to read the next year. Like, trapped under rubble, rooms filling with water, Aunt May's on the verge of death, like, he has to get the serum and get out, like, the stakes truly were high enough, which is, I think, what made the beginning of the next issue so iconic.
And when I was reading this, I was like, wow, this isn't really ending great. You know, this is not a good ending. It's not even an ending. It's a cliffhanger. But I was thinking, like, damn, if I was reading this back when it came out and I had to wait a month, I would be like, damn, I had to, like, carry not knowing what's going to go on for a month. It's not even like a TV show when they end you on a cliffhanger. Usually, you see what happens in the next week, unless it's like a mid-season finale, right? But
Right.
that would have sucked having to wait a month to read the next issue.
And then the next issue is labeled the final chapter. So I'm thinking this is the last issue of Spider-Man. Like, he's going to die or whatever. Like, the stakes are truly high. But before we get ahead of ourselves with issue 33, what do you rank in 32?
I would have to be like an 8.5. It was good. I enjoyed it.
I would easily say an 8.5 or a 9.
Yeah, I don't even.
It was probably my favorite out of this episode.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, I loved seeing him go on the Rampage, and there were so many cool moments. The staircase is the highlight for me. Like, I'm sorry, that's
100%.
It's just so cool. But so yeah, I think we both rate that one pretty high.
I will say one more thing. If I didn't have notes, I would have completely forgot about this. At some point when they're fighting, Doc Ock says, you know, something to someone who's superior than you.
Oh, I did notice that. Yeah. So we're establishing the superiority complex that Dr. Octopus has towards Spider-Man.
Do you think that's the exact quote that was it Dan Slott named it Superior Spider-Man?
I mean, I think that kind of continues in Doc Ock's character. I think that quote established his superiority complex. And then I think throughout the following comics, like, I think other creators are like, yeah, Doc Ock thinks he's superior to everyone. And so then it kind of became ingrained with his character to make sense for Superior Spider-Man down the line. So I think that established it for sure.
Right. First mention of it type thing.
Yeah, exactly. But diving into the last issue for this episode, Amazing Spider-Man issue number 33. Now, I'm sure you all know the cover. It's an iconic... Ooh, what am I doing? Revealing state secrets over here. Iconic cover of Spider-Man trapped under the rubble. Very iconic moment. Obviously, the scene in Spider-Man Homecoming was loosely based off of this.
Heavily based, probably.
Loosely. Obviously, the story around it was not the same, but the moment was obviously trying to capture the same concept. But it starts with him being trapped under the rubble and escaping.
Mm-hmm.
Through inhuman feats of strength.
He escapes through thinking about how he can't fail Aunt May, like he thinks he failed Uncle Ben, which was a theme also in the last issue as well. And I never thought that okay, so I never read this issue, so obviously he's trapped in the rubble, but the vial of the chemical that he needs to save Aunt May is like just out of reach for him as well. So he's like staring at that the whole time. So it's like Aunt May, Uncle Ben, and just this vial. It gives him the pure strength to just like lift this machinery up, escape with the vial. He hurts his leg, I'm pretty sure, so he doesn't break his leg, so he must have strained it. He must have pulled a muscle.
Mm-hmm.
Right, that's gonna be my guess. Done that before. It's not fun. I guess the vial immediately brings it back to Connors. So Connors is back once again, second issue.
Yep.
Who's been waiting for him? And, first, actually, I skipped the whole thing where he absolutely annihilated the rest of the crew.
He struggled for a little bit, though.
He did.
Which showed how exhausted he was from lifting the rubble.
Not only that, but he said lifting the rubble and how he's literally not slept the past, like, couple days.
Yeah.
With Aunt May in the hospital and everything going on.
This is... The thing that I love about Spider-Man and Spider-Man stories which I'm gonna go on a slight tangent here, but we have time. We're ahead of schedule. My favorite Spider-Man story is obviously, he's known for being down on his luck, having the odds stacked against him, and like facing it with courage despite that. But I love watching him really just put through the grinder, right? Like when he has not slept in days and he's exhausted and he's trying to fight off these henchmen and get back to Aunt May in time. Some of my other favorite Spider-Man stories is like Maximum Carnage, where he doesn't sleep for like multiple days in a row and his ribs are broken and he's still continuing to fight on. Or one of my favorite Spider-Man stories that's ever been written, it was in I think it was like 700.4 or something, like one of those one-offs during Superior Spider-Man, when they did like 5 Peter Parker stories. And it was literally, there was a snowstorm in New York, and the power went out, and Aunt May was sick with the flu, and he needed to get to her home to just like check on her. And he was also sick, and he was like swinging through the city in the middle of this snowstorm, like desperately trying to get there. Those are just the best stories. When you see how he just pushes through it all, I feel like that to me defines Spider-Man as a character.
Yeah, 100%. He's just
ruthless, and just the courage and the willpower to push through. Like, he has to save Aunt May, so he's gonna lift this impossible weight that's on his back and then fight his way through a bunch of henchmen despite not having sleep and hurting his leg and all this other stuff. Like, he always fights through adversity, and I think that's what makes him such a good hero.
Yeah, he's literally letting himself get beat up so he can not move for a little bit and just regain strength to the butts.
Yeah, and I love the panel where it like the panels slowly zoom in on him, and he's just like, I won't give up, I won't, and then the next panel he's just like this, and all of them are on the floor. Like,
he kept swinging.
He triumphed, but he was doing it a little blindly.
And the water started filling up too. So that's what happened too before this, is the water started filling up, and he let the water take him and dodge in the debris. And somehow they even got scuba divers down there to try to get him, and they were just waiting for him to come out of the water and kick his butt. And he was like,
odds were fully stacked against this guy.
Just almost drowned, and now he's gonna do all this. But like you said, he got through it. And he immediately went back to Doc Connors, who started making the antidote with him. And he needed a sample of his own blood to test to see if it would work. And he's pretty much like, listen, Connors, I'm going to explain everything to you. Don't worry. He never explained anything to him.
He said another day.
Another day.
So maybe,
we'll see.
When is Kurt Connors going to appear again? I don't know of any Lizard issues in the 40s of this series. So who knows? I guess we'll find out.
Maybe we'll explain everything.
Maybe he'll be in it before then, because I had no idea he was in this. So
right. Maybe this is something where he's like, wow, I actually got that, antidote to work. Maybe I can get the Lizard to work again, and then he turns himself back to the Lizard.
What's really cool is like you mentioned that it was cool that Kurt Connors showed up, and I agreed. We're really starting to establish this like Spider-Verse. You know what I mean? Like these characters that are coming back. Like Kurt Connors is around, and JJ's there, and Betty and Aunt May, and like all these characters. It's really starting to establish like a living, breathing narrative world. Yeah.
Right. That's pretty cool. I really like that, and I'm sure this whole story arc is going to play into him become the Lizard again. I'd be surprised if it didn't.
Probably will. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that. Your idea of like I made it work. Like I can.
Yeah.
Maybe he'll ask Spider-Man to help him with it or something. I don't know.
Yeah, who knows? It's going to be interesting. It's going to be cool to see. It's going to be cool to see because now he's in New York, so Lizard might be rampaging through New York, which is always a fun sight.
Yep.
Him in the sewers.
Has Lizard appeared since his first appearance? No, right? It's been a while.
It even says in this issue, it was like, he turned himself into a lizard in issue 6? ? Right? Because it was so long ago.
Yeah, because I'm now that I think about it, like it has been a while, and I guess the Lizard generally only shows up like very periodically, but it's not like the Scorpion who's going to be gone for forever.
Right.
But and then Peter finally figures out the right way to make Betty give up on him. Which was he was all beaten up from his fight at the Daily Bugle, and he's like, oh, I got beat up by some people trying to get photos, but I love it. I love this job. So then she's like, he's a trouble seeker. I can't have anything to do with him.
And then
it works, you know.
It worked. It did work. But then where does Flash come into this? Oh, that's later in the story. Or not Flash. No, yeah. Ned Leeds comes to this later in the story, right? That whole thing happens later.
I think that was last issue, where Ned Leeds is like, "Hey, buddy, you should."
Yeah, we skipped that whole thing. These issues are like 1A, 1B kind of. So
yeah, they all kind of blend together.
Yeah, because that was a horrible way to deal with it.
Peter
just kind of trying to beat up some other guy just to make him hate you, which she saw through in that other issue. She was like, "I know your tricks," but
she saw through it, which like credit to her, but also. I mean, Peter also kind of doesn't like Ned Leeds anyway, so I can see why he would decide to do that as his solution.
Yeah, but that worked, like you said, and it seems like I'm sure we'll see some lingering things continue with him and Betty, but it seems like this whole 32-33 kind of ended their relationship.
Yeah, you know, I don't know why, but I feel like Peter might be moving on soon.
Yeah, then moving on again.
He'll have a little trouble moving on.
I tell you, it was sad, dude. It was sad. It's a sad thing.
I gotta say, like, first of all, before we kind of wrap up our thoughts, I would rate this issue as like an 8. If I put the last issue as 8.5, I would put this as an 8. Okay. But what I want to say to kind of close out my thoughts on these issues and this podcast, obviously, as we've come back to it after a multiple months long hiatus, these issues specifically got me really excited to keep going. Reading this series because we're hitting a turning point now in the Amazing Spider-Man run. Like we saw the foundations established. I feel like 31, the first day of college, like that's the transition to the new era, right? Where we're gonna meet Harry Osborn and Gwen Stacy and Mary Jane will be showing up soon and Norman Osborn and all of these characters are gonna be coming. And I am so excited to see Peter and Gwen start dating and leading into 121 and what's going to happen then and like seeing the fallout after that. Yep. Like these are all comic books that I have never read. I'm very excited to see all of that happen.
I think contrary to general belief, this is now where we get to see the Spider-Man most people know of.
Yeah.
You know, he was in high school for 30 issues. Most people think he's a high school kid always, you know, and
anyone who's read the comics, that's not the case.
It's not the case, and this is obviously he's not in high school anymore. He started college. He's met 2 new very important characters, and like I said, it's definitely a turning point. I think here on out, there's going to be more storylines than ever.
Yeah.
Not only just there's 2 issues with the Lizard, 44 and 45, right, or 45 and 46 or whatever. There's going to be more storylines, and expect them to be. A lot. Oh, there goes my dog. It can't be a podcast.
Almost made it an entire episode.
Okay.
Almost made it an entire episode without the cameo. Man.
She just knows. She knows when she needs to pop up.
Okay? Yeah, it's great. Love it.
Yeah, it's gonna be a turning point. It's gonna really start to see more storylines that I think grow Peter Parker and Spider-Man.
No, we're going to see some really important moments in his history.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, we already have, but we're going to see more.
I feel like there's going to be a lot of just classic, double-digit Spider-Man kind of feeling story,
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Oh, yeah. I'm excited. And we'll say, like, I agree with you where, like, this is the Spider-Man that I feel like most people think of. What's interesting is this is also the era of Spider-Man that we're about to see in the MCU, right? Like he is out of high school now and going into his kind of college years, so we're going to be seeing that hopefully in the MCU. It's not my personal favorite era of Spider-Man. We'll be getting to that when he's married to Mary Jane and living in, the 90s era of comics is my personal ultimate version of Spider-Man, but
this is very dare I say 90s Spider-Man. I feel like we're gonna get that type of feeling because 90s Spider-Man was more mature, kind of like understood,
super mature,
understood what he's got to do. He's not a kid necessarily, which he's still 18, but I think we're gonna be starting to get into that more.
We're gonna get to see that transition.
Yeah, exactly. That's what.
Like if we're breaking this up into eras, right? Like we have the college era now, and then and that's like the 70s when these were published, and then we're gonna get into the 80s, and that's when it introduces like the Black Suit, Black Cat, gang wars, and things like that, and then get into the 90s, which I am so excited for. So if you want to join us along for this journey through the history of Spider-Man, gonna plug the show here. Subscribe, follow on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. Our socials are on the YouTube video. You can see them down below our face cams to go and follow us there and see future episodes as they come out. We forgot to mention that Aunt May actually got saved. We put them on a cliffhanger. Aunt May was fine. Aunt May's fine. Don't worry.
And there was one more thing I got to mention. One thing I got to mention on the spider webs on issue 32. There's a picture of a cosplay of the lizard, and it's absolutely incredible.
On the mail?
On the mail, yeah.
I gotta see this. Oh, I don't have. My digital version doesn't have the spider's web. 32 or 33?
It's 32.
Oh man, mine doesn't have that for some reason. Maybe they don't have like the rights to show that picture or something.
Did you see that one though? That's like
I can kind of
insane.
See it, yeah.
What is that?
I think
it's incredible. It's pretty great. I like that people who are doing that.
People have been cosplaying since the 60s.
Since the 60s. I would love to meet that person.
Now?
Not now. Back then.
Yeah, back then, but also now. Like
also
they're
now,
probably, if they're alive, they're probably very old.
Wonder if they still have pieces of it.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I'd buy that. Put it on the wall. I would get the comic and then like have it open to that page framed next to the costume.
I think it would be really cool to. I don't know. It must have been a wild thing to be a fan of this stuff back then.
Yeah.
As it was coming out.
Imagine having been a fan of these then, now.
Yeah.
Like imagine like I can say that I've picked up every Spider-Man issue off the shelf since like 666, right? Like, oh, I remember when Superior Spider-Man started, but like imagine being like, oh yeah, I remember when the Lizard came out. Yeah.
There's a guy on YouTube like that. He was talking about where he used to get the books and then he picked up AF-15, like, off the rack and would go get 1, 2, and I don't know his name off the top of my head, but
people talk about, like in this age of crypto and NFTs, people talk about trying to get like easy money. Imagine just getting millions of dollars for 12 cents. Like,
yeah, but you never
know. But that's one of the things I'm always conscientious of when I go to the comic store every Wednesday. Is I see a comic book and I go like, these can be worth money someday. Like there are comic books that I bought off the shelf 3 years ago that are worth like thousands of % more now than they were.
Yeah.
Like I've made profit on them. And that's why comics are amazing, and that's why we love them so much, and we are going to keep doing the show and reading through them. But that is about it for this episode. We are clocking in at about an hour, so we kind of nailed it on the
it only took us like 8 episodes to do this.
Yeah, we're still learning. 7. I think this is 7.
7?
I don't know.
I think just as he's starting to transition, I think we are starting to transition as well.
Yep. Yeah.
So it's perfect.
Yeah, it works.
We did it all for the storyline. So
100%. But we're professionals, obviously. But
well, come on, look at my lighting.
Aside from that, yeah, lighting game is on fleek this episode. Just throwing that out there. Shout out.
Shout out.
But yeah, that's going to do it for this episode. If you did enjoy this episode, go ahead and hit that like button on YouTube, or make sure you give it a review on whatever podcast platform you listen to. 5-star, 4-star, whatever you think is fair. I certainly think it's a 5-star podcast. But
tell your friends, tell your parents. Again, if I'm out here telling my dentists and my physical therapist about the podcast, I think you can go tell your mom about it as well.
If you know any friends or loved ones who maybe like the Spider-Man movies, like the Marvel movies, but have never read the comic books and they've always kind of thought about getting into it, this is the perfect show to recommend to them, because we are going to actually take you guys along the journey of Spider-Man's history. So tell your friends, tell your family. It really, really goes a long way to helping us a lot, because we just want to share this with a lot more people. So if you can do that, appreciate you. But that is going to be us signing off. Thank you and good night. We will see you guys in the next one. Peace out.
Bye.